member of this committee, Senator Crapo. Welcome to the committee, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too want to thank you for the way you are handling this hearing and appreciate your service here in the committee. And Senator Sessions, I also want to join those who have congratulated you on your nomination to be the Attorney General of the United States. I am one of those who has had the opportunity to work with you for years and know you very well. I consider you well qualified and look forward to your service as Attorney General of the United States, if you are confirmed, and I expect you will be. I know you to be a man of your word. I know that you're committed to the Constitution of the United States of America, and you are committed to enforcing the law of this country, as you have said multiple times here in this committee. So I thank you for that. I want to go in my questions into just a couple of other areas beyond just the notion of the enforcement of the law, but the manner in which the Department of Justice enforces the law. Three basic areas. One, the abuse of the power or discriminatory enforcement of the law. Two, regulatory overreach that we're seeing across this country, and what role the Department of Justice plays in trying to deal with that. And then finally, cooperation with the states. We live in a union of 50 states, and under our Constitution, there are appropriate roles for the federal government and the states, and the Department of Justice has a very powerful influence on that. So if I could get into those three areas. The first one I'm just going to use as an example of the kind of abusive use of power that I hope you will help stop and prevent from continuing to happen. It was already, this example is one that was already referenced by Senator Cruz, Operation Choke Point. Operation Choke Point, for those that aren't familiar with it, the only appropriate thing about it, in my opinion, is its name. It was a program designed by the Department of Justice to help choke financing away from businesses and industries that were politically unacceptable or for whatever reason unacceptable to the administration. The Justice Department, working with and I think perhaps even pressuring some of our financial regulatory agencies, created this program to give additional scrutiny, indeed such aggressive scrutiny that it pressured them out of their access to financing to certain industries. I don't know how these industries got on the list, but I'll just read you several that are on the list. Ammunition sales, coin dealers, firearms sales, installment loans, tobacco sales. This list is a list of 30 that was put out by the FTC. When they actually realized they shouldn't have put the list out, they quickly took it back. And the FDIC says that they're not pursuing this program anymore. But when we tried to defund it earlier, the administration fought aggressively to make sure we didn't get the votes to defund it. This program is one where the justification is, well, the businesses who operate in these industries haven't done anything wrong. But these are industries that might do things wrong more than other industries. And therefore, we're going to pressure people out of these industries. It reminds me of a 2002 movie called Minority Report. It was a Tom Cruise movie, and that was one about an advanced police force in the future that had determined or had developed the ability to know if you were going to commit a crime before you commit the crime. And then their job was to go arrest you. It was really good at stopping crime because they arrest you before you even commit it. And then one of them came up on the list, and that's the story of that movie. My point is, we can't really tell for sure whether Operation Choke Point is still operating, although we still have people in these industries who can't get financing. If that kind of thing is going on in the Department of Justice, will you assure that it ends?
I will. At least as you framed this issue, and as I understand the issue from what little I know about it, but fundamentally, a lawful business should not be attacked by having other lawful businesses pressured not to do business with the first business. That's, to me, it would be hard to justify. I guess maybe they've got some arguments that would be worth listening to. But fundamentally, that seems to me, Senator Crapo, you're a great lawyer, but it seems to me that goes beyond what would be legitimate in a great economy like ours.
Well, I would hope the Department of Justice would not be a partner with any of our federal agencies in this kind of conduct. Another one which I'll throw out as an example is the National Instant Criminal Background Checklist, which is now being utilized by the Veterans Administration and by the Social Security Administration to put people's names on the list so that they can be denied access to owning or purchasing a firearm. And the way they put their name on the list is to say that they are mentally deficient. If they need a little help on their Social Security benefits, if they're a veteran who put their life on the line for us and goes to war and receives a head injury, and so they need a little bit of assistance, then they get their name often put on the list. I know that these are not the agencies that you supervise, but I know the Department of Justice supervises the NICS list. And I would just encourage your help, whether it's here or anywhere else in our government, as we see agencies using their power to achieve political purposes or some other discriminatory purpose of the administration, I would hope you would stand solidly against it.
Well, thank you, Senator Crapo. I know you've worked on that issue. So I'd be sympathetic and be willing to receive any information that I know you've gathered to form your views about it.
All right, I appreciate that. Let me move on to the question of regulatory overreach. I'll just use one example there. I'm one who believes that today we talked a lot in this hearing today about the rule of law. In America, statutes are passed by Congress and signed into law by a willing president. But now we have multiple agencies that are doing rulemakings that, in my opinion, are going far beyond the legal authority of the laws under which they operate. I'll use one example, the Waters of the United States rule that has been implemented or is seeking to be implemented by the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers. In my opinion, that is totally unfounded in law. And often the Department of Justice is partnered up with these agencies as they try to defend their activities in court. And I'm not sure I actually know the proper role there. Does the Department of Justice simply have to litigate on behalf of these agencies? Or does it have the ability to advise these agencies that they are pursuing activities beyond the bounds of the law?
It can be that an agency would ask an opinion of the Office of Legal Counsel, the Department of Justice, and as to whether their interpretation is sound or not. That opinion, until reversed at some point, stands for the entire government. But basically, these agencies oftentimes just set about their own agendas without asking for an opinion. And often they are narrow-minded, or they're focused only on what they feel are the goals of their agency, and don't give sufficient respect to the rule of law and the propriety of what they're doing. In particular, did the Congress really intend this? Did this law really cover this, or is it just something you want to accomplish and you're twisting the law to justify your actions? Those are the kind of things that we do need to guard against.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that under your leadership we will have a Justice Department that will give strong advice where it can and have strong influence where it can across the United States system, across our agencies in this country, to help encourage and advise that they stay within the bounds of the law. The last thing, and I'll just finish with this and you can give a quick answer, I'm running out of time here, and that is cooperation with the states. As I said earlier, our system of government is comprised of 50 states in a union under a constitution that establishes a federal government. And you and I both know well that the 10th Amendment says that those rights and powers that are not specifically granted to the federal government in the Constitution are reserved to the states and to the people, respectively. Many of our states feel that that proper respect for their sovereignty is being abused, again, by federal agencies, not just the Department of Justice, but the Justice Department often gets involved in this through providing the legal services that it does to our agencies. And, you know, I could go through a ton of more examples and lists of litigation that is ongoing right now with my state and other states around the country, where if we simply had a better level of respect for the role of states in this union and under our Constitution, we could work out a lot more of these issues rather than having the heavy hand of the federal litigation system come to play into forcing compliance by states. And so I won't go into any specific details, but we'll just ask your feelings about that importance of respecting the role of states in this country.
There's no general federal criminal crimes. So many things like larceny and even murder unconnected to some civil rights connection, these things have traditionally been totally the responsibility of the states. As a young prosecutor in the 1970s, I remember almost all the cases had an interstate commerce nexus. It wasn't the theft of an automobile that you prosecuted. It was interstate transportation of a stolen vehicle.
A lot of
So a lot of that is just now we've forgotten that distinction, that limitation on federal power.
We have. And a lot of what I'm talking about happens in the Environment and Natural Resource Division or in others. There's a lot of litigation out there. I just encourage you. I am out of time.
Let me make a suggestion before I